Well, good morning and welcome to City Hall. We're going to get started with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Chris Helms is the pastor at Hope Connection Church. He's going to lead us in the invocation. Afterwards, I'll ask Councilman Greiner if he'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. But would everyone please stand?
Heavenly Father, on this Tuesday morning, we take time out, time to acknowledge that you are the sovereign God and that you have an abiding presence among us. There's decisions to be made, solutions to be found, answers to be unveiled. But in this moment, we pause and we thank you for being an abiding presence in our city. May this nation, may this state, and may this city ever remember that your will must be done on earth as it is in heaven. Yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and forever. Amen and amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Come on up. This is a special day, along with the Rotary Club of Oklahoma and the Edmond Public Schools Foundation. We are honoring our Teacher of the Month. And you can imagine how many teachers there are in the Oklahoma City metro area. So to select one is a very special honor. And this morning, Robin Mills is that person. So why don't we start with a round of applause for Robin. Very impressive. And we have a resolution. I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Whereas Robin Mills has been named Teacher of the Month for November 2017 by the Edmond Public Schools Foundation and the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City. Whereas Robin, who has been in her current position for 20 years, was inspired to enter the field of special education because her brother John was born with special needs. Whereas Robin's colleagues speak of her commitment to ensure that every student, regardless of disability, receives a meaningful education. She collaborates with all of the professionals involved with the students to foster a multidisciplinary approach to learning so that they can achieve successful outcomes in communication, socialization, academic, and cognitive skills. Whereas several years ago, Robin took on the task of starting a musical program for her students. The first one lasted only 3 minutes. Today, the program is a major production performed in front of the whole school and visiting dignitaries. These performances have a great impact on the students, families, and teachers alike. Whereas Edmond Public Schools Superintendent has said, quote, "To watch Robin Mills engage with her students is to witness love in action." Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby recognize and commend Robin Mills on her selection as November 2017 Teacher of the Month by the Edmond Public Schools Foundation and the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City.
Let's show our appreciation. And the suspense continues because we will have to vote on this. Is there a motion and a second? All right, cast your votes. And it passes unanimously. Congratulations, Rob.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you, Mayor Cornett, and distinguished council members. And my principal, Kimberly Frank, is here with me. Edmond Public Schools offers us great training, and I work with wonderful professionals that make it possible for my students who deal with deafblindness, severe and profound motor and cognitive delays to achieve their highest potential. And I invite you all to come visit my classroom sometime. The musical program is in March, and we'll try and make room for you. You're welcome to come see us. Thank you.
And we love our teachers, don't we? Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we're on item 4 of the council agenda. Item 4A is to receive the journal for October 24th, and 4B is to approve the journal for October 10th. Is there a motion? A second? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. And item 5 is request for uncontested continuances.
Mayor, just a couple this morning on page 27, under item 9I1, page 27, item C, 2325 Hardin Drive, we ask that be stricken. We need to re-notify. Item I, 4401 Southeast 104th Street, we ask that be stricken. We need to re-notify. And then moving on to page 28, under item 9K1G, 4401 Southeast 104th again, we need to strike that item and re-notify.
All right, any other requests for uncontested continuances? Item 6 is revocable permits. Looks like we have 5 to consider today. The first is a request with the Arts Council of Oklahoma City to hold opening night, along with the opening night finale 5K. Here comes Peter DeLisi, right on schedule. Good morning, Peter. We'll need name and addresses for both of you before we continue.
My name is Peter DeLisi, and my address is 3012 North Lee in Oklahoma City.
Okay?
Seth Lewis, 333 Northwest 5th.
Great to have you. Now tell us about opening night this year.
First off, I just want to take a moment to thank the city for all the hard work that you do. This is the first time that we've actually come before City Council for our revocable before we even have the poster or the programs for opening. It just whisked through all the various departments, and I want to thank Mr. Couch for all the hard work all of the departments do to just get this rolling for us, and they've been wonderfully helpful to us. And I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to our new opening night director. This is Seth Lewis. Seth's going to tell you a little bit about it.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, Seth.
Morning, all. This year is our 32nd year of opening night. We have 8 performers across 4 different venues. We'll be at the Museum of Art, the Ron Norrick Library, here at City Hall and Civic Center Music Hall, along with our finale at Bicentennial Park with the Wise Guys. We've also updated our 5K this year to be at 3 p.m. to adjust to the thunder traffic, and also a new route heading south on Walker to the river trails and back. We're expecting another great crowd and hoping the weather cooperates to bring a great night to the city.
As always. Well, thank you both. Sounds like it's going to be another good year. How about a motion? All right. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Seth. Item 6B is a request from DG Productions to hold the OKC Turkey Tracks on Thanksgiving Day. This will be a downtown event, Harvey Avenue between 4th and 6th Street. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. We will need your name and address for the record.
My name is Carrie Ralston. 17901 Briar Road is my address. And so I'm representing DG Productions. This is going to be our 6th annual Turkey Tracks. Last year we had about 2,000 runners, and we're hoping to be even bigger and better this year.
Wonderful. And how can people sign up?
You can go to dgroadracing.com to register. And a very important mission, we are teaming up with the Marine Corps to help for the Toys for Tots mission. So we encourage all runners, even if you're not runners, come out and bring a toy and help fill up the truck.
All right. It's in Ward 6, Meg.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank
Move
you.
approval.
All right. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously.
Thank
Thanks
you.
and good luck. Item 6C is a request with Downtown Oklahoma City, Inc. to hold the Bricktown Tree Lighting Festival. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Riley Cole. Address is 523 Northwest 18th.
And tell us about the Bricktown Tree Lighting Festival. This should, I guess, the Friday, Thanksgiving Friday, correct?
Yep. So Friday, November 24th from 5 to 7, we'll be hosting, I think this year is year 16 for the tree lighting, and then you will be there to light the tree for us at 6 o'clock.
Fun, and Santa Claus is coming?
Santa's coming.
Great. Glad to hear it. And no one cares about me once Santa shows up.
No, this will be a special year.
Okay. Well, item 6C is a Ward 7 request to hold the Bricktown Tree Lighting Ceremony. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move for approval.
Cast your votes. It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you then. All right. Item 6D is a request of Stockyard City Main Street to hold the Cowboy Christmas Parade. Good morning.
Good morning. Kelly Payne, 1307 South Agnew.
Tell us about this event, Kelly. It's going to be December 2nd?
Yes.
Okay.
Christmas is already in full swing in Stockyard City. We got the tree already set up. Our lighting will be on November 17th, a week before Bricktown's. We're very excited about it. All the banners were hung yesterday welcoming everyone for the festivities. December 2nd, we kick off our Cowboy Christmas Parade with our ever-popular Longhorns. Everyone loves that, so we're very thrilled. We've already got over half of the parade lineup already set in place. We will end it with Santa coming on the fire truck. We're very thrilled. We have wonderful municipal partnerships. The police station and fire station all work with us heavily in this event. So, and I also want to mimic Mr. DeLisi's comments. This has gone through just seamlessly with the city. So we're very pleased with the relationship that we have with each and every one of you and your departmental staff as well.
Sounds wonderful. Keep an eye on those Longhorns, though, as they walk down the street, okay? All right, Kelly, thanks. Is there a motion? It's in Ward 6, Meg.
Yeah, Mayor, it's such a unique parade. It's certainly the only one that has Longhorns running down the street. So please, everybody, come out to the Stockyards, do some shopping, and enjoy the festivities. I would move approval, please.
Thank you.
Cast your votes. It passed unanimously. Thanks, Kelly. All right, and item 6E is a request with the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust to hold the Hefner Dam Mile. Is anyone here representing this event? All right. Well, it's in Ward 1 and Ward 8. Mark, you want to make the motion here? I'll make the motion. All right, James, you want to make the second? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. And that event will be November 11th, which I guess is this weekend, and it'll be out at Lake Hefner. And apparently it's a 1-mile run. All right, we'll recess the council meeting, convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. Is there a motion on the MFA? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCMFA, convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. 7 items. Is there a motion here? All right, cast your votes on the PPA. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCPPA, convene as the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust. 5 items. All right. Comments or questions on the EAT? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCEAT and reconvene the council meeting with the consent docket. All right, are there any individual considerations?
Your Honor, 7A,
Mayor, 7T and 7X.
All right. And Jim, we have a presentation.
We do have 2 presentations this morning regarding the trails at Draper. Ready to go with those?
Okay.
That would be great. First up is Brett Cabanis on item BC1.
Good morning. I'm Brett Cabanis with Cabanis Engineering, 333 12th Avenue Southeast, Norman, Oklahoma. And we're here to kind of give you an update on the Lake Draper Trail. Excited to be in front of you all today, hopefully approval of our project along with Robbie Williams and Triad's project that abuts to this. Basically, the quick overview is a 13.5-mile trail around the entire Lake Stanley Draper. That project will be split up between 3 construction projects. All of those projects are basically a budget item of $3.4 million with a total of just a little more than $10.2 million for the overall construction of this. The trail does follow the Oklahoma City Master Plan for the alignment in most locations. There were a few adjustments made, suggested by the MAPS Trail Subcommittee that were incorporated into this project. And as we go through here, all of the trails are basically following the standard that's been set for the previous trail projects throughout the city. It's a 12-foot multi-use trail. Does have trail signage throughout the project. It also tells you exactly how far in location you are on the trail system. This trail is more of a rural trail system out. We do not have any signalized intersections. So we are utilizing the city standard that was developed with previous trails on non-signalized street crossings, very high visible for the pedestrian traffic as well as vehicular traffic. These will be concrete. They are consistent throughout the entire Draper Trail for all of the projects that you'll see. Our project is Project T003. Basically is along the western portion of the lake, probably the more developed area so far. Our project starts at Southeast 89th Street, where we will tie to Mr. Williams' project. That'll be up in just a moment. Basically follows West Draper Trail Drive, about 25 feet off of the roadway. If you've been out there, you'll know the roadway is 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. We want to make sure the trail is off of that in what we call the clear zone for any errant drivers that have run off of the road. They still have the time to recover before they get to the trail. So we want to make sure the trail is visible from the roadway, yet still safe distance away from any errant drivers on that. Our project is a little bit over 5 miles, or just a little under 5 miles. It does have accessibility to the marina area and parking lot that could be utilized as a shared use for a trailhead location. It does have 3 significant crossings, street crossings at 89th, 104th, and a little bit farther down along Water Plant Road through there. But it also has another access to the Cross Timbers trail parking area, recreational area that we could also use as another trailhead about midway along our trail alignment. As we say, we started basically Southeast 89th Street. It's a very open area. It does go south and southeast along the adjacent to the roadway and attaches to the Lake Draper Marina area. Some of the views that you will see along the trail, in particular our area, is a little more opened than in some of the areas that will be on the southeast side of the lake. But you can see here we do have some views of the lake as we start southwards towards the marina. One of the suggestions was from the MAPS subcommittee was to get some a little bit closer to the lake in areas very similar to Lake Hefner's trails. We've done that. It did add some horizontal curves to the trail, so the bike pedestrians may not be able to be speeding through this area. They will have to slow down, but we do take into consideration that the pedestrian traffic will also be jogging through this. And so it does have some nice views and vistas of the lake. This photo is taken a little bit farther. Basically, the trail will be on the existing dirt road, as you can see from the trees through this. So we'll have some very good looks at the lake and the water. As we continue a little bit farther south, hopefully, there we go, the trail will eventually connect to the Baxter Remote Control Airfield. Does have a connection there. We do stay on the east side for a majority of the trail, on the east side of Lake Draper Drive, near the Cross Timbers riding area. We do switch back to the west side through this. It's a very high visible area, so pedestrian traffic can see oncoming vehicles. Vehicles can see oncoming pedestrian traffic. So the location of that crossing is kind of in the very far foreground of the roadway there. If you can envision, the trail will be between the utility marker poles and the trees in this location. So you can see there's a very good visible view for all of the pedestrians using the trail as well as the drivers in that area. We do have advanced signage for both the West Draper Trail as well as the West Draper Drive pedestrians. Lastly, our section terminates on the lower side of the dam, just to the east of the existing Draper Water Treatment Plant. It does cross the Water Treatment Plant Road, which right now they are under construction. Our project will be there first, so we are going to replace the drives that we do go through there with concrete drives that will handle construction traffic as well. but it'll also give the trail users a very smooth and consistent surface for walking, riding, and biking. Lastly, as we continue south and east below the dam, we wanted to make sure that the trail had a visible view from the dam road itself. We want pedestrians, bicyclists mainly, that are utilizing the roadway to see where the trail is, see how friendly it is, see it's very open, views and vistas. So we do want to make sure that our trail is visible from the roadway so we can get some of those bike users off of the roadway and that conflict with vehicular traffic and get them on our trail system here. As we mentioned earlier, our estimate is just a little more than $3.4 million. The initial concept, we were just above $3 million. As we've made some adjustments with the suggestions of the oversight committees, that cost escalated slightly. We've gotten that back down to below budget again. Today, our estimate is about almost $3.4 million. And we do still have a small contingency in there just for any anomalies that may occur in the bidding process in the next few weeks. So we are under budget. Approval today by the council. Our schedule here is we're ready to advertise, go bid this project in late November, come back to the council for award, and be ready to issue a notice to proceed for construction in January. We anticipate construction is going to be 6 to 7 months, weather depending, and construction will be complete in August. So hopefully this trail is used by the end of the summer and early fall next year. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Next up is Robbie Williams from Triad to talk about another section of the Draper Trails. There's 3 sections. 2 of the 3 will be going out to bid today.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Robbie Williams. We have the Lake Draper Trail Phase 3, and we will connect with Mr. Cabinas's trail at Southeast 89th. We'll go north. Our trail is on the north side of the lake and the east side. We're more in the rural area. There's no connectivity to any existing facilities. So I'll run through this. I'm not going to go through a lot of what Brett said. Our project, we are 25 feet off the road for the clear zone and the safety. We have several drainage structures that we have to extend, which we will do that. But we will bring the trail in closer to the road and install guardrail. That way we're not spending more money to extend a structure. So with that, we'll get going. Our trail is about 4.5 miles long. We have major intersections at Midwest Boulevard, Douglas, Post, Westminster, and 104th Street. There's not a lot of traffic, but we will put the crossings. I mentioned the 25 feet clear zone and the creek crossings. Our construction budget is the same as everybody else, about 3.4, and right now we're just under $3.3 million. We'll just kind of go through the trail alignment with the picture. Again, here's where we connect. The red line will be generally where the trail is located. And as we go along, we do have some areas that we will clear trees and vegetation. We are, one of our project goals is to minimize the tree removal around the lake. Again, here's a drainage structure that we will be extending as we go north. At the intersection of Stanley Draper Drive and Midwest Boulevard is our connection to the Tinker Draper Trail. And with about a year ago, the Water Trust reconstructed Stanley Draper Drive, so our trail will be following basically the roadway. Again, just another small culvert we will be extending. Here's where we start getting in the wooded area. Again, another structure. These all start to look the same here in a second. Our trail does have a few locations where you can see the lake, and this is an example of one of those locations. Again, we're following Stanley Draper Drive. The new drive, Stanley Draper Drive, that was constructed to the existing Stanley Draper Drive on the east side is actually a 25-mile-an-hour posted roadway. Again, here's another culvert that we will extend. And now we get more in the rural part. This was when the road was under construction. Our trail will be up on the hill, and we will be removing a few trees. Here's a good example of where we will have to clear trees, probably about 50 feet wide as we go along the road. Same. And then we do veer off of Stanley Draper Drive, and there's an existing dirt road that we will put where we will locate the trail. And this is the connection to Project 2, which I believe is about coming in about a month. So again, our schedule is the same as the Cabinets Trail. We hope to bring it back to the City Council on January 3rd or January 2nd so we can start construction and be completed in August. So with that, if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
So do these two presentations, does that add up to the entire MAPS 3 trail out here? Is that 9.5 miles? Or
No, there's 3 segments. These are 2 of the 3 segments that are going out to bid today.
That's
okay.
A 3rd segment will be coming forth in the next few weeks.
Okay. So what's the total distance of the trail?
About 13.5 miles.
All right. And ultimately, it will tie into our larger system.
Yes.
And so how many miles is it from the closest point today to where this trail begins? If you're talking Grand Boulevard near Trosper Park.
Well, David, or can you talk about the connection?
Robbie, you're connecting up at the northeast or northwest corner, right?
Yeah, Tinker Draper Trail.
Okay, yeah, he's connecting there. I'm not familiar enough with that trail, Mayor, of how that connects with Trosper and all that, so I can't answer that right now.
But long-term, we have plans to connect this trail with the other aspects of our trail system.
I know that's the goal.
I'm not saying it's funded, I'm just saying there is a plan to...
Well, I think that's planning's goal is to create a trail system that connects like that.
Right, okay. Yes, Todd?
So phase 2, we expect to send it out to bid in a month, is that right? Approximately a month? This is phase 1 and 3, correct?
Right. Phase 2 had a couple things that we need to get fixed, and we need to stagger those bids anyway so that we can just strategize with how they get bid. So, yeah, it's scheduled to go on the subcommittee next week and go to the advisory board, and then you guys will see it right around the 1st of December.
And do we think that the construction phase for phase 2 will take longer or a shorter time, or the same amount of time as phase 1, phase 2?
I think it'll take about the same amount of time, maybe just a little bit more because there's more trees in that area, down in that southeastern section. So it might take a little bit. I don't think it'll be substantially longer.
I'm just trying to kind of deduce a final completion date for all 3 phases. So based on these being done in August, we could say September of next year.
I think fall of next year is a very good target.
September 12th, maybe. That's the... I'm just trying to nail you down a little bit.
Right, yeah. August, September, somewhere in there.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions about phase 1 or phase 3? Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right. We had some comments coming. Mark, do you want to have a comment or question on AK?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I wanted to highlight this project agreement with the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. This is a resurfacing project of West Memorial Road from North Portland Avenue to Pennsylvania. And Debbie Martin and I were lamenting this morning as we looked at this. We get a lot of calls on this road, and so I want everyone to know that it's scheduled to begin in the spring of 2018, and it's supposed to be completed in the summer of 2018. I'd personally like to thank ODOT, ACOG, the Federal Service Transportation Program for contributing $1.3 million towards this project, and I'm really excited about it and looking forward to it being completed in the summer of 2018. And by the way, it is for both sides of Memorial. The turnpike runs through there. It's on both sides of Memorial. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, Meg, item T and X.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 7T references the fact that we went out for bid for some requests for proposals to redevelop the old city jail in June of last year. And while we had a lot of interest, we only had one proposal come in, and it was non-responsive to our RFP. And so I just wanted to make those that might be interested aware that we are going to re-advertise the request for proposals. And so I would encourage anybody that has a great idea to please submit your request or your proposal to the clerk's office.
Okay.
And then I just also wanted to mention, there are 3 items under 710, 1, 2, and 3, and they're all National Register nominations. One is for the Dunbar School, which is great. One is for the First National Center, significant project, and the third is for 1210 through 1214 North Hudson. And, you know, I just think it's important for everybody to know that we've got a great development community that is working to restore and preserve and find a reuse for lots of our wonderful historic buildings.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions on the consent docket? All right, ready to vote the consent docket. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. All right, item 8 is the concurrence docket. All right, are there any individual considerations on the concurrence docket? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. That moves us on to item 9. These are items that require a separate vote. We'll start with a series of zoning cases. The first is an ABC issue in Ward 2. The address is 2836 Northwest 68th Street. Ed?
Did anyone sign up to speak? I move for approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Anyone want to talk about item 9A1 before we vote? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A2 is a zoning case in Ward 2. It's also an ABC issue, and it's at 3417 North Classen Boulevard. Ed?
Did anybody sign up to speak? No. Move for approval.
All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A3 is a zoning case in Ward 1. This property is currently AA agricultural, and it would become R1 single family if approved. James?
Yeah, this is just more development out in the northwest part of Oklahoma City. Everything around it is R1 or agriculture. It's got staff approval, PC approval. There was no protest. So if nobody signed up, I move for approval.
All right, we're voting on item 9A3. Cast your votes, and it passes 8-0. We're voting on item 9A4. It's a zoning case in Ward 3 at 1110 South Council. It's currently R1 single family, and if approved, it would become I2 moderate industrial. Larry?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Has anybody signed up?
No, sir.
This was approved by the Planning Commission. I move for approval.
All right, we're voting on item 9A4. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9B has been struck from the council agendas earlier. Item 9C is an opportunity for go into executive session. Kenny, do you want to comment on this one?
Yes, after we introduced ordinance 25777, which is this item, we received a settlement offer on a pending litigation that relates to final passage of the ordinance. So before council takes action on the ordinance, we'd recommend that you hold this executive session. The executive session is posted as an extra item on today's agenda, so we'd ask you, council, to move this ordinance to the end of the docket.
All right, is there a motion to move that into executive session? All right, cast your votes. That item moves into executive session. Item 9D is a public hearing. This ordinance relates to nuisances and abandoned buildings.
What it really does is it allows us administratively to take the items off the list instead of taking them back to council. It'll make the process a little easier. It was introduced and by Development Services a couple of weeks ago.
All right, is anyone here hoping to speak on item 9D?
I move the item.
Okay. All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9E is a public hearing. This is another item that was introduced a few weeks back to council. It has to do with the use of colored powders in recreational events throughout Oklahoma City. Did anyone show up today hoping to speak on this item? All right, how about a motion to move it forward then? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9E would get us in line with IRS requirements with our retirement system. How about a motion here? It is a public hearing. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on item 9F today? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. And item 9G is a public hearing regarding rate changes requested by the Water Trust Authority. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on item 9G? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9H is an ordinance that's being introduced today, and Police Chief Bill City is here to tell us more.
Thank you. This ordinance, the primary change in this ordinance is going to be with the inspection, ASE, certified mechanical inspections of vehicles. This all started with a complaint we received probably more than a year ago, with a lot of the inspections being done by ASE mechanics or mechanic in the alleyways, setting up in alleyways and just charging. They weren't really doing a very good job of inspecting the vehicles according to what the intent of the ordinance is. So we made some changes. That's the primary, that's the biggest change in this, is that the ASE and how that inspection is done means they have to be at a facility, they have to be able to lift it up on jacks and do a full inspection of the vehicle. There are some added things in here that are included in the ordinance on equipment and things like that, and it's also some language change, but that's the primary change in this ordinance.
All right, item is just being introduced today. We are setting a public hearing for November 21st and a final hearing for December 5th. Any questions for the chief at this point? All right, how about a motion then to introduce the item? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Thanks, Chief. Item 9I is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9I? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9J is a public hearing regarding unsecured structures. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9J? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9K is a public hearing regarding abandoned buildings. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9K? All right. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9L is a public hearing regarding the removal of properties from the abandoned buildings list. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9L? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 9M is a resolution that would approve some bond sales, and Mark Cranenberg is here to discuss this issue further. Good morning, Mark.
Morning, Mayor, Council. We have an opportunity to do some refunding on some airport trust bonds that were financed some time ago. This is a private placement refunding. Principally, we're doing about $12.5 million to refund some Garage C, which is the most recent parking garage that we constructed some time ago. And we also that's the Junior Lien Series 29A, and we also had Junior Lien 29 Series B, which relates to prior financing of the terminal expansion, and there's about $27 million that we'll be refunding. To explain that process on the private placement, Kenny Sudel is here, who's the Assistant Finance Director, and he's going to explain how we went through that process.
Is the rate changer? Are we extending the time? What's the purpose of changing the
lower interest rate?
Basically, this is just to lower the rate. So we had 4 proposals we received, and I do have to give credit to our financial advisor who suggested, going out for this. I would have been a little skeptical banks could beat the public market, but what do you know, they did. So Key Bank, Key Government, the rate that we're getting is 1.88%. So this is 10-year bonds and on airport deal. And that represents about $2.8 million of present value savings. So good news, the Airport Trust approved this unanimously back in October. And in light of the really good interest rate In addition, on a private placement, you have less fees. We don't have to pay underwriter fees. We don't have to pay rating agency fees. And given the fact that it would take us a couple of months to take something to the public market, and there's a little bit of interest rate risk there as rates are moving up, we recommend that this be approved, and be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions?
Which bank is it?
Key Government Finance, I believe they're an arm of Key Bank.
Where are they located?
You guys know where Key's located? Ohio?
Okay.
All right. Thanks very much. Sounds like good news.
Move the item.
All right. We're voting on item 9M. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 9N is to approve the MAPS Trust amended program implementation plan for October. Is there a motion here?
David can at least highlight what the items are on this. We're coming up toward the end of the Maps for Kids program. We're probably going to be looking at a resolution in the next month or two to actually close down that program as it's winding down. And some of the last changes.
That's right. This is the last changes, and we had some excess collections, and we decided and worked with the school district on how we wanted to fund or send those funds, and some of it is additional money that went to Moon. Some of it is for the street that goes around Capitol Hill High School. It's a private street, and that'll get rebuilt with some additional parking back there. So it's really just cleanup as we get to the last phase of Maps for Kids.
All right. We're working on item 9N. Is there a motion? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Thanks, David. Item 9O is a resolution that would establish the new advisory board for the sales tax that we passed on September 12th.
Mayor, this goes along what we've done on all MAPS programs or MAPS-related programs. This isn't a MAPS program. This is a sales tax program. But it's to have citizen oversight involved, whether it be the Sports Facility Oversight Board that we did a few years ago, MAPS 1, MAPS for Kids, or MAPS 3. This is very similar to either the Sports Facilities Oversight or MAPS 3. It's a 11-member board. Each of you council will have the opportunity to make a recommendation on an appointment. There will be one that represents disability concerns. There will be one out there on appointment that represents biking and trail pedestrian issues. And it'll perform the oversight of that 1 penny sales tax for 27 months. It's also what was called out specifically in the resolution for that money was that we would provide citizen oversight. So this fulfills that requirement.
All right. Is there a motion on 9O?
Move the item.
Right. Yes. Yeah, Larry.
Is it possible, Jim, to get a brief schedule this morning on how this thing is going to proceed, when we expect the committee, for example, to be starting their action, when we will be announcing who has been nominated and approved for that?
The mayor makes the appointments, but I assume it's possible it could be the next meeting.
Yeah.
And so after the next meeting, after the appointments are made, they will meet quickly and work on an implementation schedule. So the money isn't available till really March, the first check.
Well, the money is not, but the committee should begin to get ready for action in what, by the end of this calendar year?
Oh, I would think we'd really be meeting by December.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Cast your votes on item 9O. It passes unanimously. Item 9P, I understand we do not need executive session.
That's correct.
All right. Cast your votes on 9P. Passes unanimously. Item 9Q, I understand we do not need executive session.
That's correct.
Is there a motion? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9R, I understand we do not need executive session.
That's correct.
Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 9S is claims recommended for denial. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on any of the claims recommended for denial on 9S? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes. These claims are denied. Item 10 is claims recommended for approval. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on any of these items? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 11 is items from council. Mark, you want to get us started here?
Nothing today, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take the opportunity to thank
the voters and city staff. We did do the grand opening of Fire Station number 23, which is in Ward 7, but service Ward 7 and Ward 4. So it was great to see that fire station, new fire station open. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Meg? All right. Todd?
Mayor, I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware, and I'm saddened to say that former Ward 4 City Councilwoman Frances Lowry passed away over the weekend, and her funeral arrangements will be Thursday at 10 a.m. out at Sunny Lane Cemetery.
Thank you. Larry?
Thank you, Your Honor. Meg and I were privileged to be able to be with you, sir, yesterday with the opening of Fire Station 21, which serves both Ward 3 and Ward 6. It's a great facility aimed not only to protect the well-being of our firefighters, but also be able to serve the citizens, so we're real excited about that. And then this Thursday, there is a kickoff out at the outlet malls. The outlet malls are under new ownership. They are doing a considerable amount of investment to spruce it up and to make it more shopper attractive. And there's a big event Thursday afternoon to kick that off. And then we've been blessed to have Governor Fallon twice into Ward 3 in the past 2 weeks to do ribbon cutting on new businesses, bringing new jobs into the area. So we're thankful for that. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ed? All right. James? All right. And Jane is here to present the Oklahoma City State Legislative Program. The Legislative Committee met a few weeks back and has come up with suggestions for the council, and Jane's here to present that.
All right. Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm Jane Abraham, City Manager's Office. Our legislative issues for 2018, it's hard to believe that it's right around the corner since the legislature is currently in special session trying to address the budget issues at the state level. But it's already time to gear up for 2018 for the city's legislative agenda. So this is just talking about our process. The city manager asked department heads for items that they believe need to have a legislative fix, and then those items are considered by the city manager and the assistant city managers and brought to the council legislative committee, which then meets and determines which items should come forward to the city council for approval. And then we work with our contracted lobbyists, both at the state and federal level, to guide the bills through the legislative process. So just kind of to recap in 2017, some of the items that were successful. We created a task, we had a bill to create a task force to examine revenue and budget policy at the state and local levels, and that committee is currently being put together, or that task force is being put together to look at those issues. We were successful to promote the enactment of Real ID enabling legislation. That's been an issue that we've been working on for a few years in terms of the concerns about people being able to get through the airport with their driver's license from the state of Oklahoma. So that enabling legislation was passed last year and is in the process of being implemented. We had a bill to modernize posting requirements for open meetings, and that was approved by the governor. And then we also supported the enhanced efforts to collect sales tax on remote transactions, which has been, which is in the process of being implemented as well. In terms of 2018, the way that we organize our issues, we have sort of priority issues, which are like overarching principles that we use in terms of evaluating legislative issues that come before the legislature. And so those deal with, maintaining local control over local issues, funding for transit, preservation of the funding for the Heartland Flyer, which comes under attack on a regular basis, and then also to preserve our ability to address derelict properties and enforce municipal zoning, municipal codes and zoning, and then also to preserve the existing sales tax base, because that is so critical for the city. And then our initiative issues that we were looking at for this year, we had a bill last year to allow municipal judges to assign community service for indigent defendants, which kind of got hung up in the process last year, the criminal justice reforms, et cetera. And so we're hoping to be successful with that this year. In the bill that we passed to modernize our open meetings posting requirements had a legislative glitch. It was referring to incorrect part of the statute, and so that needs to be fixed, which should be just a housekeeping issue. We hope that shouldn't have run into a lot of problems. The third item is in terms of our streetcar system, there needs to be a state safety oversight entity designated, and this is a federal requirement. And so we're going to work on legislation to have ODOT be that state safety oversight, and that's necessary for our streetcar operations. The next item is to address some of the law enforcement issues. So as you all know, the state question to allow sale of strong beer and wine in grocery stores was passed with a state question in 2016. So with that process, there's been a lot of changes required in the statutes to harmonize the state laws with that state question. And some of the enforcement issues have kind of arisen with that have been either left out or need to be addressed, that our police department has identified. And so we want to address those as we go into this session before it goes into effect in October of 2018. The next item is to work with automobile recyclers to tighten documentation requirements for those selling cars to be crushed. And then the final item is to increase if the motor fuels tax is allocated, if the motor fuels tax is increased, to allocate an additional amount to cities and towns for infrastructure. And then in terms of our support issues for 2018, and these are issues that are typically being promoted either by another group or another organization, and we either express our support or opposition to those issues. So the first one is to allow cities to create public safety districts to fund emergency service operations. And this bill made it really quite a long ways in the last session. It made it through the House, and it got stalled in the Senate. But we had worked with our partners in Tulsa and with OML to promote this issue. And that would just be enabling legislation for cities to create public safety districts to assess ad valorem for police and fire operations. The next item is we always want to support the Oklahoma Tax Commission in their efforts to modernize sales tax collections and to implement best practices. The fourth item is to support efforts to enact Marsy's Law, which is a criminal justice reform that addresses the rights of crime victims. And then the fourth item is to support efforts to keep car tags with the vehicle owner. Several states have found that that's more effective in terms of law enforcement, and we just support that effort. The rest of these are, the next one is to retain tools for economic development, and so that is some of the quality jobs, et cetera, items that we feel are important in terms of our economic development issue or efforts. The second is to allow coordination for DNC operations at commercial airports. And this is another item that's taking place in several different cities across the nation with the Uber and Lyft operations at airports. It's a different situation than across the city because they're a commercial enterprise at airports. So we want to work with them to find a way to improve operations and how they interact with both the driving public and the taxi cabs that operate at the airports. Next is just to monitor water rights and clean water supplies, and then oppose efforts to impose unfunded mandates, and we monitor any efforts to limit dates or shift costs for local elections. So those are the state issues. Does anybody have any questions on the state issues?
Just one question. You mentioned the public safety district that we're supporting, and you talked about police and fire. Is it limited to just police and fire, or are there other services?
Ambulance services would also be included. Anything related to public safety would
Tornadoes.
be included in that umbrella.
Okay, thank you.
Jane, at the federal level, the proposed changes to the federal tax code eliminate historic tax credits,
Yes.
which has a direct ripple effect to the state credits here. Are we working right now, and will we be working with our federal lobbyists to try to help address that?
Yes, we are. There are several issues in the proposed tax reform that have an impact on cities, including the elimination of the exemption for bond, the municipal bond exemption, also state and local tax exemption. I think there are several things that would have an impact on us in terms of our financing.
And I think there are hearings starting today.
Correct,
Maybe that
on
are
markup.
significant. So if we got conversations happening?
Yes, we do. Steve Carey is very involved in the appropriations process and the markup process that's taking place.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Jane?
Yeah, I can't imagine the strain on mental health that's involved in your job. I just want to say thanks, everyone. But I noticed on the legislative issue, there's nothing on education. I don't know if the committee talked about education specifically. I'm wondering, are we monitoring? There's a school of thought that the state school funding formula is very complicated and biased towards rural communities because rural communities can artificially keep their property tax low, and then that diverts more dollars to rural communities and punishes Oklahoma City schools. I know that there's some talk of maybe looking at that in the next legislative session. Is that something that was looked at by the committee? Will we be monitoring that? Will we be opining on that?
We monitor everything that we believe would have an impact on Oklahoma City, but we didn't specifically discuss it.
Laid out. We could modify the program to add that if that's a desire. I mean, that's certainly
just
very topical.
It seems like there's a small but growing movement to maybe look at that maybe we can have our lobbyists get involved in that conversation.
You're talking about the state funding formula?
Correct.
Yeah, why don't we look at that in the next legislative committee meeting?
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have a question for Jane?
And I'll just run through the federal issues quickly. So obviously our top priority is the passage of remote transactions parity, e-fairness legislation. We also, in terms of funding for transportation and transit, that's a big issue for us on the federal level in terms of those pass-through dollars. We support FAA operations in Oklahoma City. There have been several efforts to try to privatize those operations, and we feel that we need to make sure that we position Oklahoma City in a favorable way in all of those conversations, if they go in that direction or keeping it private or keeping it in the hands of the federal government. That FAA operations are very critical to our city. We also support Tinker Air Force Base. There's also talk about a new round of BRAC coming out, so we want to stay on top of that and make sure that Tinker is well positioned in that process. Support Amtrak and passenger rail service. And then here we kind of get into the retaining the tax-free status of municipal bonds. That would have a significant fiscal impact on the city operations in all of several different areas and trusts. And we support airport transportation and infrastructure, and then continue to monitor the Clean Air Act enforcement standards and to support the economic development and grant programs that we compete for.
So I'd like to ask that we consider supporting or the federal historic tax credits as part of that program at the next legislative meeting. If we lose them at the federal level, we lose them at the state level.
All right. Why don't we take that to the legislative committee as well?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, Jane, thanks for your work in these areas.
Thank you.
All right, so we have two resolutions to pass here. The first is to adopt the state's legislative program as stated today.
Move the item. Second.
Cast your votes. It passed unanimously. And then item 9B is to adopt the federal legislative program.
Move the item.
Cast your votes. It passed unanimously. All right, city manager reports.
Several items this morning. There's two presentations. The first is a presentation on autonomous vehicles regarding the modern streetcar. Mark Dorn is here this morning to talk to us a little bit about this. Very interesting opportunity for the city.
Good morning. My name is Mark Dorn, and I'm with AECOM. I was the design manager for the Oklahoma City streetcar project under the Jacobs contract. And I was the fortunate enough to be the task lead for this very exciting study on the feasibility of autonomous operation for the streetcar. Thank you. So today we're just going to step through reviewing the work that we have conducted to date. I have with me Veronica Sirenosen, who is our technical expert in the AV and autonomous vehicle and connected vehicle industry. She is from AECOM. So we're going to step through all of the work that or just a brief review of all the work we've done as part of this study, including looking at the state of the industry and what is the feasibility of retrofitting the streetcar to have an autonomous operation, and then we wrap up with some of our recommendations if you were to choose to move forward. The objectives of the feasibility study was to assess the state of the industry. The connected and autonomous vehicle industry is rapidly developing, and it's a very exciting time. So there's a number of pilot projects that are underway in the transit realm. So we've researched some of the pilot projects, and we have some lessons learned that we're drawing upon in that. The development is happening very quickly, so we were looking at the status of the regulations and legislations, and then basically the meat of the feasibility study is what are the technical requirements and how would this operate, and then we again come with the next steps. So I'm going to turn this over to Veronica, who will step through some of the main background of the feasibility of this.
Good morning.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, Mayor Cornett, members of the council. I'm thrilled to be here this morning to provide an update on the feasibility study that we've been conducting regarding autonomous operation of the streetcar. That is the wrong direction. Okay. I'll begin with just a brief overview of the state of the industry, both for automated rail operations as well as for automated and connected vehicles. Next, I'll provide an update on the regulatory context. There's quite a bit of regulation at the federal, state, and state level. I'll provide a summary of industry interviews that we conducted for the project, and then I'll go over some of the system requirements for what it would take to apply connected and autonomous vehicle technologies to the streetcar. In terms of the grade of operation for train systems, you can see in the diagram here, it ranges from grade of automation 1 to 4. And so starting at grade of automation 1, you see that the driver is in control of the streetcar vehicle and is in charge of operating the vehicle, starting it, stopping it, taking control of the doors, and also intervening in times of emergencies. Moving down to grade of operation 4, you see increasing levels of automation. So at grade of automation 2, you have automatic train protection and automatic train operation. Starting and stopping the train is done autonomously. However, the driver is still there to do open and close the doors and intervene in times of emergencies. Moving to grade of automation 3, you see increasing automation. An operator is on board, but they're really serving as more of a train attendant to address passenger needs and not so much controlling the movement of the vehicle. And then finally moving to grade of automation 4, you have automated operation of the entire vehicle, and there's no need to have an operator or driver on board. While there's a lot of buzz lately in terms of autonomous vehicles, autonomous operation of rail systems actually has a fairly long history. So you'll see here, beginning in 1967, there was the first automatic train operation. That was in London Underground. The vehicle operates with no driver in the cab, so the driver on board is really more of an operator attending to customers. Next up, in 1983, in France, you had unattended train operation. That system has been in operation since the early 80s. There are no recorded fatalities, so it has a pretty high safety standard. Next, moving on to grade of automation 2. These are trains that run autonomously from station to station, and the driver remains on board and is responsible for opening and closing doors. One example of that is the BART system up in the Bay Area in California. It's been operating like that since 1972. So there is an operator in the cab, but that person's not actually controlling stopping and starting of the train. Grade of automation 3, there are none in the United States, but there are some, notably in London, Barcelona, and elsewhere in the world, and those systems have been in operation since 1987. And then finally, grade of operation 4, this is the one where the vehicle is completely autonomous. There are 15 operating in the United States. The example we're showing here is the Miami Metro Mover, but usually these are vehicles that are on a completely separated guideway, so they're not running in mixed traffic and they're not interacting with pedestrians or cyclists. Moving more towards the present day, you see the photos on the right side of the screen, and this is really getting more into the cutting edge of automation in rail systems. Some of the examples that are going on right now are in Copenhagen. The picture in the front, in the middle, is a system that is being designed and has launched already in China, and so that's an automatic train. And finally, the one on the bottom was the case study that we looked at that's most similar to what we're looking at here. This is a streetcar in France that would be operating in mixed traffic conditions. It's a regular streetcar vehicle that has been retrofitted with automated and connected vehicle technologies. They've conducted their first phase of piloting, and the vehicle has automatically been able to detect obstacles in the right-of-way and come to a stop, so improving safety there. Moving on to the definitions of connected and automated vehicles for vehicles, not for rail. The US DOT defines autonomous vehicles as a vehicle where some part of the vehicle function is not controlled by the driver. And so those vehicles can be automated and or connected. For connected vehicles, there are various levels of connectivity. So the first level is vehicle-to-vehicle communication, where the vehicle is able to communicate with other vehicles on the road. Next is vehicle-to-infrastructure, where the vehicle can communicate, for example, with signals or with light posts. And finally, vehicle-to-everything, where the vehicle can communicate with other vehicles, infrastructure, and other users of the right-of-way. So, for example, if I'm a pedestrian or cyclist, I would get a notification that, hey, an autonomous streetcar is coming up. You should slow down or stop, and vice versa. The vehicle might know that there's another user of the right-of-way there. In terms of the regulatory context, it's moving rather quickly in parallel with some of the developments in the technology. There are a couple federal regulations and guidance documents that are applicable for our study here. The first one is the vehicle-to-vehicle communication guidelines from the federal government, and this regulation proposes that 100% of new light-duty vehicles are equipped with vehicle-to-vehicle communication by 2023, and that notably the communication systems will speak the same language. So, for example, a Toyota and a Ford would be able to communicate with each other and other users of the right-of-way. Next is the federal regulatory guidance. This is a new document that was released in September. It replaced a guidance document that came out last year. But essentially, this document includes voluntary guidance for states and local municipalities that want to embark on connected and autonomous vehicle policy and regulation. And it also includes behavioral competencies that if you were to implement a connected and autonomous vehicle project, what are the types of behaviors that the vehicle should be able to do safely? Next is the vehicle-to-infrastructure communication guidelines, also from the federal government. This one essentially defines what the federal government includes as a vehicle-to-infrastructure project, and it's notable because we would have to comply with this if we were able to apply for any federal funding for a project. And finally, this is most recent. This is a bill that was passed in the House, not yet considered by the Senate. It was unanimously passed, which I think is fairly notable given the current state of affairs in D.C. The acronym Self-Drive Act is Safely Ensuring Lives, Future Deployment, and Research in Vehicle Evolution. And essentially, this lays out the definition of what would be considered connected and autonomous vehicles, and also sets standards for operators that want to move forward with those types of projects. And then finally, looking to the state level, you can see that across the country, there are various states that have enacted legislation. Since 2012, there are 41 states that have considered, 21 and D.C. have passed autonomous vehicle legislation. Here in Oklahoma, Senate Bill 202 is pending. The last action taken on it was February of 2012. And essentially what that bill does is define autonomous vehicles, and it instructs the Department of Public Safety to adopt regulations for operation of autonomous vehicles in the state. But what we learned from the review of state legislation was that it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of what states are doing, but the regulations or the fact that there are enacted regulations does not necessarily preclude a state or a local municipality from moving forward with a pilot project. Some of the projects that have received federal funding for autonomous vehicle pilots are in states where there is no enacted regulation. Next, we did an industry interview. We focused on 3 primary areas: universities to see if there was any appetite for collaboration there, private vendors and technology companies to see really what technologies were under development and if there was any applicability to a streetcar, and then transit and public agencies. And what we learned from this was, I think, very exciting. Both of the universities here in Oklahoma are doing work in connected and autonomous vehicles. They have, in one case, an autonomous golf cart that's currently going around campus. There's a lot of interest on behalf of the students as well as professors to collaborate in terms of moving this technology forward in Oklahoma. From the transit and public agencies, we learned what it takes to do a successful pilot project and got a lot of good input in terms of how government can collaborate with the private sector. And then finally, from the private sector and technology interviews, we got a sense of what technologies were out there and what could be used to retrofit a vehicle. I think some of the most notable ones were the interviews that we did related to that project I mentioned in France, which is very similar to what we're exploring here. And then finally, based on our review of the legislation, industry interviews, and technology assessment, we defined what the system requirements would be for an automated streetcar operation. And I'll go over the first 3 of these and then turn it back to Mark. But broadly speaking, we can categorize them into sensing, seeing, thinking, and wayside requirements. On the sensing side, there are 2 technologies that enable the vehicle to know where it is in space and then also detect what sorts of other users of the right-of-way there are. LiDAR is light radar, and so essentially the vehicle puts out a light radar and is able to detect if there are other users in the right-of-way. Geolocation enables the vehicle to know where it is in space and in time. There have been a lot of advancements in high-definition cameras, and so these seeing technologies would enable the vehicle to, for example, tell the difference between another vehicle or a pedestrian or a cyclist in the right-of-way. And then finally moving on to, I think, more in the future and more cutting edge is the thinking technologies. So these are artificial intelligence. And so these types of technologies are being used in passenger vehicles right now, but they would be able to, for example, to know the weather, and so that when you come into the vehicle can say, good morning, Mayor Cornett. Did you remember to bring your umbrella today? We know you often forget it. So really moving into advanced stages of the vehicle, understanding its environment. The final aspect for streetcar operations that we wanted to touch upon in terms of system requirements was the wayside requirements. So what would we need to do on the infrastructure side to enable communication with the vehicle? And I'll turn it back to Mark to go over some of those.
So some of the wayside infrastructure would be rather modest. So some of this, it would be essentially a supplemental computer that would be on board with a vehicle and with an antenna that would then communicate to components that would be integrated with the traffic signal controllers. A lot of this technology is in development and in operation with some of the bus rapid transit projects across the country, looking at traffic signal priority systems. As far as the vehicle requirements, we had Bob Heifel help us with a study. He's from Jacobs and has been overseeing the procurement of the streetcar vehicles. Really in addition to that autonomous computer that would have to be integrated into the vehicle, we would have to connect all the functions that those operators, that the operators serve. And so really the next 3 slides here is just to kind of give you an idea of all those functions and complexities that would have to be overcome. So really, why are we looking at this? Why an autonomous streetcar? Well, we think there would be a lot of real benefits to such an operation. First off would be the safety and reliability, and that sensing technology would understand that envelope of the streetcar, and it would have that the reaction time for to react to safety conditions. But maybe a good example would be with streetcars. Often, if there's a parked car that's following the trackway, or it looks like it's encroaching onto the trackway, an operator will take care to make sure there isn't a conflict where and that could slow down the train or even stop the train, whereas the sensing technology would understand right off if there's a fouling of that envelope for the streetcar. So there would be certain efficiencies there that would result in reliability. One of the biggest benefits that we see is that if you, as Veronica described, the autonomous level 3 and 4, with the autonomous level 3, you still have a person on board, and initially you could convert that operator, the person driving the streetcar, into a more traditional conductor, say, or we were terming it ambassadors in our report. And that person would be inside the cab with the customers and be much more customer facing, and they could serve several needs as far as the customer service, but also ticket vending or ticket fare inspection and other functions where some operational cost savings could really be realized. Initially this would be the first of its kind, so there would be an attraction component with such an initiative. And also, in general, there would be a big benefit to the transportation and transit industry, because this would be developing that new standard. This connected vehicle, autonomous vehicle industry is coming, and so this would help pave that way. So the concerns can really be mostly summed up to that last bullet, is that this is in the infancy, and so it'll take some time, and there'll be, it's being first of its kind. There's some complexities that would have to be figured out. So, but what is the end zone? If we got to, as you roll this out, it would be an incremental approach, but ultimately you want to get to that level 3 and level 4, as Veronica was describing, where we'd have the ambassador on board. Initially, that ambassador would probably be a trained operator, which is a higher cost labor rate, but eventually that person could be more just that conductor function, and then the trained operation could be in dispatch. So the conductor would be trained to handle any incident response while they wait for that trained operator to come over and take over the vehicle operations if that was warranted under that condition. There's certain other functions, as I mentioned, that the conductor or ambassador could serve. But this would be an incremental approach, again, in order to get to that ultimate goal of a fully autonomous operation. The return on the investment, as far as the operations itself, there's the cost of the operators. Right now it's about 60% of your operating budget, and so that's where a large part of the cost savings could be realized. That supervisor function would be about the same. They are trained operators themselves. That fare inspection and transit security, because that conductor would be customer-facing inside the cab, these are functions that they could also serve as well. So there could be a real benefit there. But then mostly, too, with that customer-facing interface, we think that there would be a very positive response to ridership, too. I think people would be a lot more comfortable riding the streetcar, because they would have that person right there to answer questions and help them understand how to pay for a ticket, or giving directions, or where to go and where to stop. So the summary of our findings from the report, that it is very feasible to undergo this initiative to autonomize the streetcar operations, but as I've described, there's many complexities that would have to be figured out. mostly the standards of how this would be rolled out and developed, and how the operations would be tested and incrementally approved by the reviewing jurisdictions, including USDOT, would be an important part of this step of rolling out an autonomous operation. So because there is that overall, because it's the first of its kind in the industry, there would be that benefit to the industry as well. So our recommendation is to undergo a pilot project and to reach out to the USDOT if so desired, but because there would be that benefit to the industry, that we feel that there would be interest on USDOT's part to help develop this as well. And so this would be it would be more or less a public-private partnership that there's many in the private sector, including the autonomous vehicle technology people in the private operating sectors, but also the engineering and architectural world as well, that would be interested in helping develop this. Because there would be that return on the investment, we recommend that we reach out to the USDOT and move forward with that. So the pilot project itself, the scope of this would be to understand fully understand the costs and the benefits, but the cost of the logistics of the wayside and interfaces with the streetcar, and understand all that testing and safety certification for each step of automation as it is incrementally rolled out, or achieved, I should say. So the scope would be we think there's a unique opportunity because we have 7 streetcar vehicles now under procurement, and the 7th vehicle actually is scheduled to start fabrication this winter. So there may be some opportunity to accommodate the design, so retrofitting the autonomous technology would be easier. We do believe we just start with one as part of this pilot project, one vehicle that is. And then also we work to understand and implement what that retrofit of the wayside infrastructure would require too. Another unique opportunity with your streetcar project is that we call it the non-revenue track, but it's the track that goes from the mainline service at Oklahoma City, or Oklahoma Boulevard, down to the maintenance facility. And this is about a little more than 1/3 of a mile down Hudson, and this would be an environment that would be easily controllable and could serve as a perfect test track for the autonomous streetcar to roll up and down as those testing requirements were figured out. And with a pilot project, we would take an incremental approach, and so with each phase, we would have that level of autonomous operation, as Veronica described. We'd start with level 1 and then go to a level 2 where the driver is in the cab and monitoring the situation. But then we could, eventually increase the autonomous operation to a level 3. And again, all on that non-revenue track, going up and down that 1/3 mile. But then maybe as we achieve each step, we can expand that into the Bricktown loop, the 1-mile loop that goes into Bricktown and back to the convention center. And so each of these phases, the pilot project would document those requirements of safety certification and testing that is required. We're doing this already for your initial streetcar job, but this would be something new, and so this would be the result of the pilot project, and that would be a meaningful document for anyone else in the future to be undergoing a similar initiative. Thank you. We also think there should be a public outreach component to this, mostly just to educate the public and make them aware of what is going on, but also to understand any concerns. We also think there might be an opportunity to get other participants involved in the initiative. So because the streetcar itself would be this rolling data collection and processing unit, maybe there's other applications you can leverage from this, such as monitoring on-street parking and where vacancies are. We also, I didn't mention it before, as far as the public-private, next slide, sorry. So with the, again, we think this is an opportunity for a public-private partnership. We think that we've put an outline of a funding program we think would be about a 3-year effort, would be reasonable. We think the grant application from USDOT should be on the order of about $3 million, and then there would be a certain amount of contribution that would be made by other participating entities, mostly in the form of time donated towards the effort. We think there should be an outreach to the universities to get them involved, but also, as I mentioned, from the private side with the operators and the vehicle supplier and the autonomous technology suppliers as well. And then as far as the schedule, we're saying it's about a 3-year effort. So the first 6 to 9 months, we would be prepared to help out with preparing the application for a pilot project funding request from the USDOT, and at the same time use that 6 to 9 months to further define that scope of the pilot projects, and also start the outreach to these private entities to see and request if there's other interest in participating in this. We have received interest from other transit agencies too, which could be an opportunity to reach out and have their participation as well as the APTA, the Association of Public Transit, American Public Transit. And then at 9 months, 6 to 9 months, when that grant would be received, that would then truly kick off the full retrofit of the vehicle and the testing procedures. So, as far as next steps, we would be prepared to prepare that proposal document for you and to reach out to these entities and also help support you with a request to USDOT. And that concludes our study. Is there any questions?
Yeah, let me make a few remarks, just partly as a reminder. A lot of this, I think, began about a year ago. I was in Brookville and got to look at our streetcars and ask the engineers that had designed them, would these be adaptable to an autonomous, society? They assured me they would, that these were fully programmable streetcars, and the technology from their point of view was in place. Now, there was still a lot of work to be done, perhaps with universities and other research assistance, but the streetcars that we're receiving are adaptable to autonomous technologies. Then in Washington, the USDOT kind of unveiled a plan that they are looking to partner with local governments on a lot of autonomous technologies. And with that kind of knowledge in place, we have been in conversations about perhaps Oklahoma City could work with the USDOT on being the first streetcar that investigated autonomous technology. The USDOT is very interested in partnering in these types of relationships. They're looking for higher levels of technology. So their funding would need to be in place before we proceeded down this path further. I don't think we need to be a testing site for the rest of the world without partners on the line. But the DOT is looking for partners at every level, so state, local, tribal, if that's a possibility, but also business leaders and perhaps consultants that you listed here in this report. There's a lot of partners that would be naturally inclined to invest in this type of technology, and we're specifically positioned because of that what he called the testing track. We have track that's not going to be in use for the normal route, and I don't know that there's a lot of streetcars that have a situation like that, and so that is one more reason for us to kind of be viewed favorably from Washington on down. And so at this point, it's really just a presentation to get the council up to speed on where we are with it, and that we are proceeding with council's approval to continue conversations, and at this point, nothing more.
Correct.
So with that, feel free to fire away. He's the guy that has all the answers.
I do have one question, and it's not really related to the streetcars themselves, but I thought maybe with the research y'all have done, you could answer. Is there anyone working on pothole recognition?
Well, and the sensing technology, I think I'd have to turn that over to Veronica if you know.
There are a couple companies using cell phone imagery to recognize different things in the right-of-way, including potholes. I know within our company we're doing some partnerships using available aerial and street view data that's readily available online to do that kind of condition assessment of the street right-of-way. So yes, there are a couple companies working on that, whether it's automatic or whether it would be kind of every couple months looking at the imagery and then identifying deterioration in condition of the street right-of-way.
Thank you.
And we
Yeah,
can...
there's similar systems on train doing exactly that, inventorying the condition of trackways and stuff like that, so using that LiDAR technology.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right.
Well,
Thanks for the report.
we really appreciate the opportunity. This has been really exciting for us, and we look forward to continuing to help you with this initiative.
Great. Thank you.
While we are on the...
Okay, we haven't really moved on yet. I think you're next, Michael. We don't have anything else going in front.
While we're on streetcar discussion, Jason Fairbush is going to come up and talk about the streetcar also. And there was a comment a couple councils asked me about in the paper yesterday regarding the delivery schedule of the streetcars. And the streetcars are on schedule being developed like they planned on. We talked about bringing them in November or early December, and we don't really need them at this point in time, so we think it's probably just a little safer and keep them under their control and under their insurance and such at Brookville. So we're going to not take delivery till after the first of the year. That does not affect the overall schedule of the modern streetcar operation. It does not affect the overall operation of anything else. And they are on schedule, and we will be receiving the streetcars after the first of the year. But it does not affect when we go live. So, Jason.
Well, good morning, Mayor and Council. Looking forward to the opportunity this morning to share with you a brief update on where we're at in terms of getting ready for streetcar operations, which is really just about 14 months away. So as we look, as we start the presentation this morning, probably take a look first here at a system overview. There we go. Just a quick reminder on the system overview. As you can see, our system is actually going to be comprised of two routes, the D line, which is the larger route you see on the screen here, serving Midtown, the business district, and Bricktown. A secondary route that is called the B line, and that actually serves Bricktown along with the Chesapeake Arena, the new park, the convention center, and the Myriad Gardens. You can see there that the D line is just under 5 miles of revenue service, offering 10 to 12-minute frequencies during peak, 14-minute frequency off-peak, and comprised of 22 stops. The B line, on the other hand, is just over 2 miles. We're looking at 15 to 16-minute frequency and 9 stops on the B line. Continuing with the system overview, wanted to share this image with you here on the right. Again, it's a image of the route, but here you can easily determine which parts of the route are going to be off wire and which parts of the route will be on wire. And again, that is something that makes our modern streetcar system unique, in that we are relying on battery propulsion technology really to provide service along about 40% of the route. So that green area is the off-route area, off-wire area, and the red area is the on-wire area. Again, looking at our service span, the D line will operate Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. to 12 a.m., Friday, 6 a.m. to 2 a.m., and then Saturday, 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. The B line, we're looking at having the same service span as the D line, only as we start the system, we'll have regular service on Friday and Saturday, and then we'll run the B line when we have events and conventions occurring. You'll notice that the only Sunday service that we'll provide will be again, where we have events and conventions. And so when we launch the system, that's the extent to the Sunday service that we have planned. Okay, so looking at operations preparedness. As you can imagine, 14 months away from streetcar operations, Embark staff, Herzog, our contractor, their staff, we're very busy getting ready for all the things that go into preparing the Oklahoma City streetcar for operations. As you can see here, we're looking at about a 14-month timeline with several major objectives to accomplish over that period. And through the presentation, I'll go into each one of these in a little bit more detail, but as you can see, first up is moving into the storage and maintenance facility and equipping that facility as it is completed, working our way down through the list in terms of finally being ready for the FTA readiness review. So, storage and maintenance facility. We're looking to move in January of 2018 following the completion of the building in December. And I wanted to give council a sense of really what is going to occur in this building. We talk a lot about it being the storage and maintenance facility for the vehicles, and this is true. This is where they'll be stored. This is where we're going to work on the vehicles and maintain them, but this is really going to be the operations center for all of Oklahoma City Streetcar. This is where all of the staff will report for duty. We have training facilities located within this building so that we can train people that need access to our right-of-way. We can train employees. And this is the location of the control center. So supervisors that are on duty will be able to monitor the status of the system from visual displays. They'll be able to identify the location of the vehicles, the status of the traction power substations and the electrification system, all that from within the control center. So as far as major tasks go, as we begin moving in January, we'll not only be setting up the administrative offices and making sure all of our technology is working, but we'll begin ordering parts and special equipment and inventorying those appropriately. A few pictures for you here of the storage and maintenance facility. The very top picture was taken just about a week ago, so you can see it's just almost ready for move-in. Looking at the bottom left, this is a image of the track that's actually in the yard. You'll notice it's ballasted track rather than embedded track that we've seen in the city streets. The middle bottom picture is an image of the one of the maintenance bays, and then you can see the front of the facility as well. So vehicle delivery and testing, and again, as Mr. Couch had mentioned, we do have some flexibility in delivery, which is a good thing for our operation. So once the storage and maintenance facility is complete and we have begun standing up that particular building, then we'll be in a position where we can receive delivery of the vehicles and have a place to store them. So again, we're looking at taking delivery of vehicles probably somewhere in the January to March timeframe. And just to give you an idea of the type of inspections and testing that will be done, first of all, before the vehicle even leaves the factory, it will go through a first article inspection, and that is where the factory production manager and then the MAPS 3 consultant that has been on site since the vehicles began production, they will go through basically a checklist, if you will, of different items, making sure that the vehicles were built according to specifications. Once they arrive in Oklahoma City, Brookville representatives will be on site. Between Brookville and eventually Herzog, our operator, will do static testing. So that's testing the vehicles to make sure, for one thing, that they're still in the condition when they arrived here that they were when they left the factory. But basically all the tests you would do without the vehicle actually moving. So it could be simply opening the doors, making sure the control switches and some of the circuits, all those things work. And then the dynamic testing will actually be where we'll test the vehicle in motion out on the test track that was described earlier on Hudson. So we're looking forward to receiving the vehicles. A couple of comments on the images here. This is vehicle number 1 as it's on the test track there in Brookville, Pennsylvania. You can see a shot of the interior of the operator cab as it begins its test run, and then an exterior photo on the bottom right. And I will mention that the vehicle does not have the lower skirting, so when it arrives and we put it into service, it'll have a much cleaner, modern look. But in that particular photo, and the next one I'll show you, they have the skirting off, so you can actually see the trucks, if you will, that are under the vehicle. And so again, here's a larger image of our first vehicle, the Redbud color, of course. And then in the bottom right, you can see a photo of Embark staff, our state safety oversight officer, as well as Brookville's production manager, standing next to what I believe is car number 6. You can see it's just in framing compared to the almost completed vehicle number 1 on the top part of the screen. And so I will mention it was a very productive trip. We mentioned inspection and testing. So several of us from Embark, MAPS 3 office, again, our state safety oversight office, and Herzog, our contractor, we did take a recent trip to Brookville, Pennsylvania to inspect the vehicles while they are on the production line. And again, we timed it just right so that all of the first 6 vehicles were in production, so we were able to look at vehicle number 1, which is pretty much complete, all the way down to vehicle number 6, which is, again, just getting framed, and then, as you can imagine, everything in between. So it was very, very enlightening, very informative. Okay, I won't spend a lot of time talking about construction. That's, of course, being managed by the MAPS 3 office, but again, it is a critical part of being ready for operations, and that is monitoring the construction schedule and participating in the construction meetings. This image here will just give you an idea of kind of where we're at on some of the main pieces of construction. You can see with the table on the left that we have about 73% of the utilities clear. Track demo is at 50%, track installation at 44%, and then the OCS foundations, or the foundations for the overhead catenary poles, is about 44%. So again, color-coded so you can kind of see what parts are occurring on the route. And then talking just briefly about staffing. Obviously, for a successful streetcar operation, we have to have adequate, well-trained staff in place. To give you a sense of what we're doing on our staffing, as far as Embark staff goes, we have had a streetcar operations manager on staff for a little over a year now. We've had a lot of support from our safety officer, our public information office, our administrative support staff, helping the project move along. And eventually, as we get closer to revenue service, we plan on adding a customer service representative to our staff as well to extend our call hours some, but also to be able to address what we will anticipate is some additional volume at our call center. And so I mention that because one of the things that we think is very important from a customer service perspective is that customers using the Oklahoma City streetcar, it shouldn't matter whether it's Embark or it's Herzog, it's all Oklahoma City streetcar. And so, again, when customers have questions about the service, they'll call the Embark call center. The uniforms, for example, will even be approved by Embark. They'll have the Oklahoma City streetcar logo as well as the Embark logo and such. So again, from a customer experience, although we have kind of 2 different groups responsible for the operations, the idea is to make it seamless and unified for the customer. So looking over at Herzog staff, most of the staff responsible for operations will be contracted. Currently, we have a general manager on site. He's working full-time now. Throughout the rest of the winter, Herzog will be adding a general manager, safety manager, operations manager, and fleet manager, with those positions coming on at different times throughout the project. The fleet manager obviously would be coming on within the next couple of months in anticipation of the storage and maintenance facility being online. And then as we get about 6 to 8 months away from operations, that is when the operators, mechanics, and the rest of the frontline supervisors will be hired. And community outreach. I wanted to talk a little bit about community outreach. When we look around at other systems, and I think as we're talking about operations and all these tasks that we've identified, you know, we've learned a lot from visiting other operations. Staff from Embark and even in the MAPS office to some extent. I mean, we've went to Kansas City and had tours and ridden their system. Same thing with Atlanta. We've been down to and toured the Dallas system a couple of different times. We've rode the DC streetcar, Portland streetcar. So we've tried to really, you know, build our plan on listening to advice from those systems. And one of the things we've learned is community outreach is very important. And you know, the MAPS office through ADG, I think, you know, we would all agree have done just a fantastic job of community outreach with the business owners and the property owners along the existing route. And so as the operator, we want to be able to continue that and emulate that moving forward. And so as you'll recall, we had a lot of community involvement with our branding, and we used that same approach or a similar model in community outreach, working with different stakeholders to name the streetcar stop. So if you haven't had an opportunity to look at the names of the streetcar stops, they're on the slide here. You'll see there's 22 different stops ranging from the Myriad Gardens all the way down to the Scissortail Park stop. And we purposefully named these so that they're descriptive generally of the area the stop is located, but they're not so specific that we couldn't hopefully be able to garner some sponsorships in the future. Also looking at community outreach, social media, of course, is very important in getting our message out to our community. We try to post some material at least once a week as we have different events and things occurring. That frequency picks up, but we try to do at least once a week. Currently have a couple thousand followers on Twitter, over 400 on Instagram, and 588 on Facebook, and we can continue to see that grow, and really would expect probably as we get closer to operations to see it grow much faster than it is currently. One of the other things we've done with community outreach is we've certainly reached out to the ADA community. And what I wanted to mention here is, as you'll recall, I might have shared this with council one other time, but prior to construction, we went out and we actually, you know, kind of mocked up and painted a streetcar stop platform along the route. That helped us as the operator just kind of get a feel for where the shelter would be laid out, where we might want to put the ticket vending machine. But it also helped us as an education piece. So this is the stop we mocked up at 8th and Broadway, and we invited the Mayor's Committee on Disability Concerns to come out and join us at that platform, just so that we could help educate that group and, of course, receive, you know, their feedback. We had about 8 to 12 folks from that committee show up and join us, and we will conclude that education piece with a similar tour of the first platform as it's completed, which will most likely be the ballpark stop platform. And again, the idea there is to get that committee's input on the best way to communicate how to use the streetcar to the ADA community. And so one of the other things we've been working on recently in terms of community outreach is our renderings. I have 3 renderings I wanted to share with you this morning. You've probably seen at least 2 of them. But the idea with the renderings, again, is not necessarily just to show what does a streetcar stop look like. It's really to begin helping our community understand how is the streetcar system going to work? What can they expect? And so you can see from this rendering alone, it's very easy to determine that, okay, the streetcar is sharing the roadway with a motorist. You can see the type of shelter that you would expect to see at a streetcar stop, very similar to what we're currently installing at our bus stop locations. You can see the streetcar is ADA accessible. There's an individual with a mobility device. Bicycles are allowed on the streetcar. You can see the person waiting with a bike. Also, you'll get a sense of the pylons or the markers for the stop locations. You can see it's clearly labeled here as the ballpark stop. And what we plan to do with those platforms is one side of the platform will have basically a static map that will not change of the route, and the other side of the platform will be an electronic display that through phasing we will eventually start with notification of when the next streetcar will arrive, and then we will work our way up to adding an interactive map and hopefully even leveraging that for advertising and public service announcements. Okay, the next rendering I wanted to share with you, and you've probably seen this one, but this is a unique stop in the system. This is the Scissortail Park stop right at the corner of Robinson and what will be the new Oklahoma City Boulevard. You can see in the background a rendering of the convention center along with Scissortail Park and a proposed convention center hotel. And then just out of sight, of course, is the Chesapeake Arena. And so what makes this stop unique in the system is that it is double-tracked. You'll notice streetcars can serve the stop platform from both sides. And then also, just as a reminder, this particular part of the route, as the streetcar moves from Robinson over to Hudson, it will be in a dedicated right-of-way on the north side of the boulevard there. And then the last rendering I wanted to share with you this morning is one that we have not had an opportunity to unveil to the community yet, but we thought this was a pretty good opportunity to share it with council first, and then I'm sure it will be tweeted out just probably moments later. But this is an image of the stop in the Central Business District. So this is the streetcar coming south on Robinson, just north of Park Avenue there. So a lot of the same amenities we looked at with the Bricktown stop, but this gives you an idea of what the service looks like in the day. Obviously, the one we looked at the ballpark stop was an image of the streetcar service at night. Okay, talk a little bit about operating revenue plan. Generating revenue from the system is certainly one of our priorities. We want to be able to offset the costs with streetcar fares. And so what we've been working on over the last 12 months is basically a fare study for our entire transit system. So that's evaluating our fares for bus, for river cruises, paratransit, and of course, streetcar. As part of that fare study, obviously we're focusing on streetcar and trying to determine an appropriate fare. That study is still underway, but we do know at a minimum that as far as fare options go, we will have at least a single trip or time-limited fare. We'll have a day pass for the streetcar, and then we'll have an unlimited monthly pass for the streetcar. Again, those are what we plan on having just as minimum offerings. Now, transferability between modes is just absolutely important to us. We want people to use the streetcar and the bus system, and so we also plan on offering universal passes that will work between modes. So again, it's about giving the customer choices. If I'm just a bus rider, I can buy just a bus pass. If I'm just going to use a streetcar, I can buy just a streetcar pass. But if I want to use both, we have the universal option. So,
Jason, is there do other cities do annual passes? I mean, you stopped at monthly, but are we looking at an option where you can buy a year-long pass, or is that too?
You know, I'm not sure on the annual passes. It wouldn't surprise me if there are some out there. We haven't got that far. The three that I mentioned we know are kind of essential. And then as far as the annual pass goes, we'll just have to determine what kind of interest and how hard it would be to administer a third type of fare media.
Thank you.
Yep. So also as part of the fare study, we just finished up 4 different focus groups on October 30th. And again, this was bringing people from the community in to learn about the streetcar and to learn from them their thoughts on appropriate fares and fare collection technology. Now, we had England Public Relations help us with that. They're currently kind of compiling some of those results. We don't have those yet, but I was encouraged by the participation. We had over 35 different people participate. We had interest actually from about 200 people. We had folks in those focus groups that just rode the bus system. We had folks in those focus groups that never used transit. They parked in our downtown garages. We had some members of the cycling community there, so we felt like we had a pretty good mix within those focus groups. And then lastly, in terms of collecting fare, we are looking at ticket vending machines. You probably noticed that in some of the renderings, but each one of the platforms will have a ticket vending machine so that passes can be purchased while an individual is waiting for the streetcar. The other piece of the fare study is not only looking at what an appropriate fare would be, but what's the best way to collect that fare. And so in addition to what we currently offer, we are in the process of putting together an RFP for mobile ticketing technology, which would obviously allow users of the system to purchase their fares from their smartphone, not have to interact with the ticket vending machines or purchase tickets at the transit center. And then finally, last thing we're looking at in terms of operating revenue is naming rights and sponsorships. The COTPA Board of Trustees last Friday awarded a contract to Hoke Advertising for naming rights and sponsorships. And so as we've seen other systems across the country be able to secure naming rights deals, is something that we are certainly looking to doing, and are confident that the contract awarded last Friday will help us get there. Okay, and finishing up with FTA readiness review. One of the core values of our organization is safety. In fact, the core value is safe always. And through the FTA readiness review, we feel like we're able to certainly ensure the safest operation to the Oklahoma City community. So what the FTA readiness review is comprised of is basically the FTA through ODOT Transit, State Safety Oversight Office. They will certify our system for operation. As you can imagine, those FTA requirements are, essentially best practices that are applied to other rail systems throughout the country. So it's something we certainly want to comply with as well. Now, ODOT's role in terms of providing oversight for the safety operations is relatively new. This was not legislation when the streetcar was originally developed and such, but it is part of the legislation that was signed into law in 2012. Final rule came out in April of 2016. And so we will be working and have already been working very closely with ODOT. As I mentioned, they accompanied us on our trip to Brookville to look at the vehicles. So one might ask, well, if our streetcar is not federally funded, why would we have this oversight role? And the answer is really, first of all, the streetcar connects to a federally funded system, our bus system, right? It also makes a connection at a transportation hub with federal funding. Obviously, as I mentioned, with safety being one of our core values, we as an operator want to demonstrate that we're adhering to safety programs that are being used with other systems. And then the other thing is looking forward. If we want to expand the system and apply for federal monies for expansion, or even receive additional formula funds for maintenance of the streetcar, we need to be able to demonstrate that we are complying with FTA safety rules and regulations. And so we have been very busy preparing, getting ready for the readiness review. We do expect the readiness review by the FTA to occur in May or June of the coming year. While the FTA is here, they'll of course look at the alignment, they'll look at the storage and maintenance facility, they'll inspect the vehicles, but they're also going to look at a lot of our safety plans. They're going to look at our certifiable elements. Again, this is kind of our checklist of things that we're looking at to make sure we have a safe and functioning system. They're going to be looking at the activity that our committees have had. We currently have a Fire and Life Safety Committee that's meeting regularly. That's where we involve police and fire and help educate them about the streetcar and so that they're prepared for emergency response. Safety and Security Committee, our Configuration Management Committee, which is basically operations, having a review of different changes that might be made through the construction process. So there's a lot of stuff that the FTA is going to look at when they're here. In addition, and just finishing up on FTA readiness review, several of the Embark staff have been completing the Transit Safety and Security Program certification. There's 4 different classes. They're 4 to 5 days in length. 2 of us have completed 3 of the 4, and then 1 other staff member is beginning his certification this year. And so we will have all those required certifications in place by Revenue Operations. Okay, so with that, that's an overview of what we have been working on, kind of behind the scenes, getting ready for operations, and we expect there'll be more to add as we get closer. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
All right, questions for Jason?
A couple of questions.
Sir.
I have a bike, and I want to ride on the bus or on the streetcar. Where does the bike physically, where is it located?
Yeah, so in the mid-section of the car, there's actually a location where there's no seating and a bike rack. So.
And then second, you talked about stop layouts and planning for that. It can get awfully cold and wet and windy in January. What are we doing to protect people from the elements with the stops?
Well, there is a shelter, and I can back up to that. Or do you mind pulling that shelter up? So there is a shelter at each one of the stop platforms, and then you can see it here with the individuals kind of setting under the shelter. The shelters, again, they do conform to our current standard, which is 3 sides. And also keeping in mind the frequency on the streetcar, being 10 to 12 minutes during peak, 14 off peak. Hopefully the wait won't be too long.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Jason, thank you and your staff for such great work.
Thank you.
All right. Before we go forward, we probably ought to let citizens talk on this if they've chosen to. Michael, you're the only one that signed up on this for a streetcar conversation.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Michael Washington, 2900 Northeast 18th Street. First of all, this is a preposterous proposal. Okay, no disrespect to the presenters, but I think my taxpayer dollars can be spent more uniquely and more advantageously with respect to the communities outside of this isolated downtown area that could use that millions to better prepare for riots and poverty and businesses on outside of the downtown area. Now, a computerized controlled streetcar, autonomous vehicle, isn't that wonderful? Now, you're going to tell me, actually, Michael listens very carefully, by the way, everybody. Now, you're going to try to convince me, sir and madam, that this sideway travel thing is going to be so uniquely constructed that a conductor can be driving and say, oh, somebody, let me talk to y'all back here while we keep going this way. Has anybody ever thought of the real serious nature in possible malfunctions, which everybody knows computers are not perfect? But I believe that a person, a human body, is going to be far more personal and more prepared and perfect than a computer. Now, not only that do we have it, but then again, as this gentleman just spoke, he said that they're now trying to review, have a little study as to what kind of fare they're going to charge the riders. Well, now, first of all, sir, you know and I know that somebody got to pay for that construction of that autonomous streetcar and other 7 cars that's going to be here. So let's not pretend well, who's going to pay for it? And by the way, do we know right now how much it's going to actually cost to bring all these streetcars in for construction and all this? Did we look deeply? I don't think we did. Now, not only that, but now safety and reliability is my first concern. Now, I'm a little bit upset this gentleman spoke and said that he had talked to some of the community, but everybody knows Michael Washington is very interested in what's going on down here because I'm always here when ain't nobody else who look like me, that is. And you never spoke to me, sir, neither one of you. Okay? But now you will, for the most part, be on out, because I'm going to visit your office and I want a complete copy of everything you're doing, which I have a right under Open Records Act to get, and I'm going to get. Now, then we also have here, you said, Mr. Jason, I just called, I wouldn't even fathom trying to pronounce your last name. You said it's going to be a project to start in completion in 14 months. Is that complete or start? It's started. Now, or completed, because obviously you're doing something on it now. Okay, then now you got to tell me that this is a MAP 3 project. Okay, now was this money already prepared to give to these people? Did this just recently pass due to the September 12th? Mr. Counsel, go ahead. Can you answer that?
All right. Michael, your time's up on this issue.
We had two different subjects.
And you're going to be able to speak again momentarily.
Okay, all right. Well, again, I'll step down, but I was just ready to put some fire under the table in, but you kind of helped me out.
All right. All right. Jim, you want to continue with city manager reports?
Right. We finishing up. We do have the September 17 quarterly investment report. Kenny Soodle and Bob Ponkill are here to answer any questions, and we also have the hotel tax collections report through September 30th of 17.
Yeah, it looks like the hotel motel tax is coming in nicely.
Not bad.
Yeah. It is really good. All right. Any questions?
And great return on the investment portfolio. Good job, guys. That's pretty impressive in this market.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Citizens to be heard. Michael Washington.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Wonderful occasion. I love doing this. Really, I do. My goodness, so I'm excited when I get a chance to speak before this illustrious group. Okay, by the way, sir, first of all, I want to talk about my area on Martin Luther King, for the most part, since I don't have much time, and it has to do with the Clara Luper Freedom Center. Now, you, very distinguished group, do have the authority and power to issue a citation in recognition of its greatness, which you've done on many occasions before. I would like a resolution, I know not necessarily there, but this is just to bring it so you can have it on your minds, a resolution declaring that to be a very unique, historical, and needing to be preserved history center. Okay, as we know, that is the foundation of the real freedom or civil rights movement here in Oklahoma, regarding the various sit-ins and stepping in and being a part of the sit-ins in the restaurants where blacks were not allowed to be a part of, and various other sanitation projects and things of that nature where blacks were not allowed to be a part of. And I think that is a very unique thing, because right now it is in a very dilapidated state and very seriously need in construction. And if in turn that this group can find out, which again, you very well know that y'all can go out, send somebody out and say, take it up on your own, since this is a city project and within the city limits, you can go out and say, hey, this is a historical place. It should not be allowed to be torn down, because it not only preserves our great history, but it also gives African Americans, Indian, Hispanics, and everybody else an opportunity to learn about the great culture, the great civilization, the great pyramids and tombs and great unique things that African Americans here in America did to preserve their great history. You know, like great leaders like Clara Luper, Marcus Garvey, Sojourner Truth, and those people like that there. Ralph Bunche, okay? Ralph Ellison. Those things need to be preserved, sir, and committee. And I would like for someone, I'll be bringing the pictures back. Like I say, I have a week before the actual committee next week, week after. And I'd like to bring that to this attention of you people. That needs to be preserved. And I don't care, like I said, these so-called fake leaders, black leaders. I'm not talking about this man here for the most part, but these so-called fake NAACP people. And yeah, y'all listen and watch it. All that fake stuff. This woman left, Clara Luper left. She must be turned over in her grave for us so-called black leaders in the NAACP to let this woman die and then disregard her presence, her greatness, her unique cornerstone, okay, for the most part, and to allow it to be in a dilapidated state. Let me say by closing, they know, if you're listening to me, y'all know that I don't like what you're doing, and You're going to hear from me. Thank you all very much. Again, I would like y'all to very seriously consider this resolution, in that at least a statement from you, since I believe you're concerned citizens, that this is a unique foundation that needs to be preserved. And again, I'll be giving a different presentation within a couple of weeks. Thank you very much for this time, and thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have executive session. We'll be back. We have returned from executive session. I'll look for a motion. Okay, and 9C. First, we have a resolution. Is there a motion on that? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Now, we will need 7 votes on the emergency, and there's 7 in the room. So how about a motion on the emergency? Cast your votes, and it passes 7-0. That's it. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.